There was a time when I couldn't remember why I walked into a room. I'd just stand there, looking around, hoping something would remind me. Sometimes I'd forget the names of people I love, my own grandchildren. I'd pick up a book and read the same line 5 times. I used to think, this is just what happens when you get older. Everyone around me said the same thing. It's normal, they told me. Just try to stay active. But something about that didn't sit right with me. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life feeling foggy, disconnected, and unsure of myself. I didn't want to keep pretending that everything was fine when deep down I was scared of forgetting the things that made me who I am. And then, completely by chance, I heard a doctor say something that shifted everything for me. It was about real food, things we've known all our lives but never truly valued for what they can do for our minds. Foods that can help keep the brain awake and working better, even in your 70s, 80s, and 90s. That got me curious. I had nothing to lose, so I gave it a try. And slowly, something changed. I began remembering things more clearly. I stopped feeling lost halfway through a conversation. The best part was, I felt present again, fully here, in the moment, like myself. I want to share what worked for me, the foods that helped me feel like myself again. Before we dive in, I'd love to know, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or state in the comments below. I always love seeing how far our community is reaching. Point 1, Blueberries. I found out that blueberries are packed with something called antioxidants, and more specifically, flavonoids, which are natural compounds that help fight the damage that builds up in our bodies over time. That damage, often caused by stress, pollution, or even just aging, doesn't only affect our skin or joints, it affects our brain too. Over time, that damage can make our thinking slower, our memory fuzzier, and our mood heavier. But the compounds in blueberries help protect the brain cells and even improve the way they talk to each other. At first, I didn't expect much. I just started adding a handful of blueberries to my breakfast every day. Some days I'd eat them with plain yogurt, other days I'd toss them into my oatmeal. I didn't change anything else, just that one small habit. And after a couple of weeks, I noticed I was finishing my thoughts more easily. I'd walk into the kitchen and actually remember what I came in for. I even remembered the name of a neighbor I hadn't seen in years. That hadn't happened in a long time. The science backs it up too. Studies show that older adults who eat blueberries regularly have better short-term memory and better learning ability. But for me, the most powerful proof wasn't in the research, it was in the way I felt. Less fog, more clarity. Less frustration, more confidence. Blueberries didn't cure anything, but they gave me something back I thought I was losing, control over my own mind. Point 2, Avocado. Avocados are rich in healthy fats, especially something called monounsaturated fats. Now, I know the word fat can sound scary, especially for those of us who grew up being told to avoid it. But not all fats are bad. Some, like the ones in avocado, are essential for the brain to work the way it should. You see, our brains are mostly made of fat, and they need the right kind to stay sharp. These good fats help improve blood flow to the brain, which means more oxygen and more nutrients getting to the parts of our mind that help us think, remember, and focus. Avocados also have vitamin E, which helps protect our brain cells from damage, and potassium, which helps regulate blood pressure. That matters, because high blood pressure is linked to memory problems later in life. So keeping it under control with foods like avocado can make a real difference. I started simple, just half an avocado a day. Sometimes I'd mash it up with a little lemon and spread it on a slice of whole grain toast. Other times, I'd dice it into a salad. On weekends, I'd even blend it into a smoothie with banana and a splash of almond milk. It wasn't a big change, but it became a regular part of my routine. What surprised me was how quickly I felt the difference. My thinking felt smoother, like I wasn't struggling to find the right words as much. I had more energy throughout the day, and my mood felt lighter too. One day, my daughter said, "Dad, you seem more like your old self." And that meant the world to me. Avocados didn't solve everything overnight, but they helped rebuild something that had quietly been fading. And that, to me, was priceless. Point 3. Walnuts and almonds. Growing up, nuts were just something we had during the holidays, a small bowl on the table, maybe a few in a cookie. I never imagined they could play a role in helping me think more clearly. But once I started looking into foods that support memory and mental focus, nuts, especially walnuts and almonds, kept coming up again and again. I learned that walnuts are rich in something called omega-3 fatty acids. These are special fats that the brain loves. They help reduce inflammation, protect the connections between brain cells, and even encourage the growth of new ones. And almonds, while slightly different, are packed with vitamin E, magnesium, and healthy fats too, all important for keeping the brain working well as we age. Here's what surprised me most: walnuts actually look a bit like tiny brains. And maybe it's just a coincidence, but it turns out they're one of the best foods for brain health. They help improve memory, support sharper thinking, and protect against age-related decline. And almonds help keep our energy stable and our focus steady, two things I struggled with before I made these changes. I began with just a small handful a day, 5 or 6 walnuts and a few almonds, usually in the mid-morning or mixed into my yogurt at breakfast. Nothing fancy. No strict measuring or complicated recipes. But after a few weeks, I started to notice something I didn't expect: old memories coming back, clear as day. I could remember a childhood friend's name. I could picture the way our living room looked when I was a boy. These weren't memories I had thought about in decades, but suddenly, they came to the surface. Even more importantly, I stopped feeling that constant mental fatigue, that heaviness in the afternoon when your brain just wants to shut down. I felt more awake, more focused. I could read a full article without losing my place or forgetting what I just read. That, for me, felt like freedom. Point 4. Dark chocolate. For a long time, I thought taking care of my health meant giving up the little pleasures, especially sweets. I avoided sugar, skipped desserts, and felt guilty even looking at chocolate. But everything changed when I read about the benefits of dark chocolate, especially for older adults like me. Not the sugary kind loaded with milk and fillers, but real dark chocolate with at least 70% cacao. That kind turned out to be not just okay, but actually good for my brain. What makes dark chocolate so special is that it's full of flavonoids, the same kind of plant compounds found in berries and tea. These flavonoids do something very important: they improve blood flow to the brain, reduce inflammation, and protect brain cells from damage caused by stress and aging. That means better focus, stronger memory, and even a more balanced mood. For me, that last part was especially important. When I added just one small square of dark chocolate to my day, usually after lunch, I didn't expect much. It was more of a treat than anything. But over time, I noticed something interesting. My afternoon fog started lifting. I could sit down to read and actually stay focused. I found myself feeling calmer, less restless. And on days when I'd talk with my grandkids or write in my journal, my words came out easier. It felt like something had clicked back into place. What's more, chocolate naturally helps the brain release endorphins, those feel-good chemicals that make us feel relaxed and happy. And when you're in a better mood, you think more clearly, you remember better, and you connect with others more easily. I even began to enjoy sharing stories again, the kind I used to forget halfway through. Of course, this doesn't mean eating candy all day. I still stay away from sugary snacks, sodas, and store-bought pastries. But a small piece of real dark chocolate? That's part of my routine now, not just because it tastes good, but because it reminds me that taking care of your health can feel joyful too. Point 5. Water. Out of everything I added to my routine, this was the simplest and most surprising: plain water. Not tea, not juice, not fancy drinks, just water. For years, I didn't think twice about how much I was drinking. If I was thirsty, I'd have a sip. Sometimes that meant I went hours without a single glass. And yet, I always blamed age for why I felt tired, foggy, or forgetful in the afternoons. It wasn't until I started reading about how hydration affects the brain that things began to make sense. Our brains are made up of around 75% water. When we don't drink enough, it becomes harder for our brain cells to communicate. That means slower thinking, weaker memory, and even more confusion. I realized it wasn't just forgetfulness, it was dehydration, and I hadn't even noticed. So I made a small change. Every morning, before coffee, I started drinking a big glass of water. Then another one with breakfast. I kept a bottle near me all day and made sure to take sips regularly, even when I didn't feel thirsty. It wasn't about chugging huge amounts, just staying consistent. The change in my thinking was almost immediate. My mind felt sharper. I didn't lose my train of thought so often. I could follow conversations without drifting off halfway through. Even my mood improved. That foggy, cloudy feeling that I thought was just part of getting old started to fade. And the best part? It made all the other changes work better. When your body is hydrated, it absorbs nutrients more effectively, meaning the blueberries, the avocado, the nuts, and even that square of dark chocolate all had a stronger impact. Sometimes the most powerful things aren't new or expensive. They're the things we've had with us all along but didn't value enough. Water gave my brain the foundation it needed to function again. And for something so simple, the result was incredible. If there's one habit I'd recommend starting today, it's this one. Because without it, nothing else can really work the way it should. Point 6. Green leafy. After seeing how small changes made such a big difference in how I felt, I became curious about what else I might be missing. One thing that kept coming up in articles, videos, and doctor interviews was green leafy vegetables. Things like spinach, kale, collard greens, and even romaine lettuce. I'll be honest, I wasn't always the biggest fan of leafy greens. I'd eat them here and there, but never really thought of them as essential. Now I see them differently. What I learned is that green leafy vegetables are packed with nutrients that are directly linked to brain health. They're rich in vitamin K, folate, beta-carotene, and lutein. These nutrients help slow down cognitive decline and protect the brain from damage over time. Vitamin K, in particular, supports brain structure, while folate helps with memory and mood. These greens also contain antioxidants, which, as I've learned, are vital for keeping brain cells healthy and reducing the wear and tear that comes with aging. So I started doing something simple, adding a small salad to my lunch every day. Nothing fancy. Just a handful of fresh spinach or mixed greens, a little olive oil, some tomato slices, and maybe a boiled egg or a few sunflower seeds on top. If I was having soup, I'd stir in chopped kale or collards. Some days I'd blend spinach into a smoothie with banana and almond milk. The point wasn't perfection, it was just about including greens in whatever way I could. After a couple of weeks, I noticed a calmer, more balanced energy. I didn't feel so up and down during the day. My thoughts felt steadier. I was able to plan my day better and finish what I started without getting sidetracked. Even my mood improved, I felt more emotionally even and less reactive. When I started this journey, all I wanted was to stop feeling like I was fading. I missed being able to follow a conversation without losing track. I missed the feeling of walking into a room and remembering why I went there. I wanted to stop feeling like a stranger to my own thoughts. What I didn't expect was how much more I would get back, not just memory, but energy, confidence, and a sense of joy I hadn't felt in a long time. These 5 changes weren't complicated. They didn't come from pills or special treatments. They came from everyday foods and habits that I'd overlooked most of my life. A handful of blueberries in the morning. Half an avocado a few times a week. A small serving of nuts. 1 square of real dark chocolate. And making sure I drank enough water. That's it. Nothing dramatic. But when I stuck with it, every single day, something inside me shifted. I started to feel more present again. I remembered old stories with my grandchildren and didn't get lost halfway through. I had conversations without anxiety. I read books without rereading the same page 10 times. I started writing down memories that I thought I'd lost forever. And maybe the most beautiful part? I began to feel like myself again. Not the version from 20 years ago, but the version that still had something to say, to feel, and to share. I know this won't be the same for everyone. We all have different bodies, different experiences, and different needs. But I wanted to tell my story because I know how scary it can be to feel your mind slipping. And I also know that small steps, even tiny ones, can make a big difference over time. So I want to ask you now, have you made any changes to your daily routine to support your memory or mental clarity? Are there foods or habits that have helped you feel more like yourself again? Please share in the comments how old you are and where you're watching from. I truly want to read your stories, because what helped you might help someone else too. And if this message touched your heart, consider sharing it with a friend, a family member, or someone who's been feeling a little lost lately. Sometimes, a little bit of hope is all someone needs to begin again. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, take care of your beautiful mind.